working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Chirico and Brad Skelling.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. And I said welcome back because I have a feeling you've been here before. My name is Steve Chirico, and I'm so glad that you have joined us today. And this is my frenemy, my partner in crime. What other things could I call you? Brad Skelling. Welcome to the podcast, Brad. Glad to have you here.
I'm going to go dad on you for a minute and say, you can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for supper.
Ooh, that's a Midwest one for sure. You just showed your age and your locale. Nice job.
I'm going to have some almond patties and some stroopwafels, and we'll just keep right on a moving.
Yeah, well, we're in Sundrip land, so we're going to have Sundrip and we're going to have some moon pies, and you need to catch up, okay?
No,
Brad, we've got an extraordinary podcast today. We have invited a friend onto it. Are we going to let her introduce herself, or should we tell everybody who it is?
I thought it was extraordinary because you and I were together again. But yes,
Oh,
Rachel Gardiner is here, which
Rachel!
does make multiple times better than just you and me bantering. Yes.
100%.
Welcome, Rachel.
Rachel, welcome back to the podcast. I can't believe you came back a second or third time. It's amazing.
I did. You know, I came back only for the banter. It's so much fun. It's my favorite part.
It's really why we have our 5 listeners. Not looking for any content.
There's no first party. Yeah. Steve called me one time and said, I just listened to Nate Bargatze and John Christ on a podcast together, and we are better than they are. They think they're funny because they're comedians, but they can't banter for the life of them. So,
no. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was kidding because I listened to the podcast. I was like, it's got to be those guys. It's going to be incredible. And it was, sorry, guys, you're amazing comedians, but you shouldn't banter. Rachel, would you mind just helping everybody, remind them where you are, who you are, what the Lord's doing with your life?
Yeah. So I'm Rachel Gardiner. I'm in North Carolina, what we call North Carolina District 1. So that's 4 counties, Johnston, Wake, Wayne, and Wilson. July 1st, I'll have been doing this for 6 years. Can't believe it. Such an honor. I'm married to Adam, best man in the world, mom to Emerson, who will be 10 months old this week. And I love what I get to do, and I'm honored to be here.
What's Emerson doing these days?
Napping, screaming, eating.
No crawling?
It's
Question
like
mark?
an army scoot at this point, where his legs are just dangling behind him, but it's super fast. It's incredibly fast. So, and he is trying to walk. So I think Emerson might want to skip. He's doing a lot of talking.
Yep.
We only understand 2 words, dada and dada. So it's a strong vocabulary. I'm not offended at all.
Good.
Yeah. You know who's with you all day long, kid? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like his dad, and he said dada first. I'm like, why am I here? But
yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So, Rachel, we've brought you on today to talk a little bit about just local marketing and how you tell the story and where you tell the story and when you feel appropriate. You've done an incredible job. We'll shout some kudos to you right away. We were talking before we hit the record button. You've done a really good job creating ownership in the local market that you serve. And that's kudos to not just you, but also to the team that you've built. So that's super fun to, we've spent some time with some of them in the past as well. But I wanted to just kind of dive in a little bit today and just ask you the question, what do you think the biggest challenge has been for you in your 6 years in developing, just telling the story, right? Like marketing it out to the different facets that are first priority.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is an area that I never expected to be good at. But I'm very, very thankful that the Lord has equipped me and people have equipped me to have some kind of competence in this area. But the biggest challenge I'd say to like marketing locally is probably first unnecessary competition. I think that can be just incredibly challenging. Now, that can show in a multitude of ways. You can have it between churches. This church wants ownership of a club, and so they want you to be their person and their spokesperson, or it can be between clubs, Christian clubs on campuses. We've seen competition there. And so You have people loyal to different areas. You have denominational preferences.
Yeah.
Well, if you let them serve in first priority, then what about us? And so I think unnecessary competition comes to mind first as one of the biggest challenges. But the second one is knowing your people and building trust with your people. That is a long game. It takes a lot of work. I remember starting this and nobody knew who I was for the most part in the first priority world locally.
Yeah.
And so it took me a year to build some trust and to show up to youth events and Sunday morning services, not because I was getting anything, just because I wanted to start building relationships with these people and getting to know them. Every church is different. Every area is different. And so what is your church passionate about? What is your area passionate about? What do they need? And that was hard. That takes a long time. And, with the turnover in churches, the turnover in businesses, you feel like you take 4 steps forward and 2 steps back. So those are some of the challenges that come to mind.
It's interesting because, that's super practical, right? And like you said, it was unexpected that you're good at this, but I think the competition and those two things are kind of the same, right? The competition and you need to build trust. I think that's also unexpected for most first priority leaders because we all attended a church. We all talk about being brothers and sisters in Christ and all these things, but then we don't actually have a practical application to that oftentimes until first priority comes along. And we do say, hey, let's get these multiple denominations in a room and work together. Sometimes that's happened for an event through town, a speaker or a concert or things that are a little more easy and short term. But like you said, long term, 6 years, it just doesn't happen overnight, right? To build that trust to say, hey, just because we're different denominations doesn't mean we can't work together.
Yeah.
So do you have any specific examples of, walking through some of those trust building exercises? I know that wasn't on your list, but I'm throwing one over there at you.
Yeah, I have a few actually. So, the whole thing of first priority is we are students reaching students. That's the whole thing. That's what we do. That's the lane God has asked us to operate in. There are so many other Christian clubs on campuses, and they have their lane that God has asked them to operate in. And we would actually work so beautifully together. The way that we're designed, we're evangelistic. We want to reach those students who have never heard about Jesus, bring them in. And then I think some of those other clubs that are really well known, at least in our area, FCA, Young Life, they would be phenomenal to take some of those students who have just heard the gospel, just started going to church and plugging them in. And so some of those areas I sense, especially in our schools here locally in North Carolina, just a competitive nature. It gets the numbers, it gets about the resources, it gets about the hype. And so coming in with a heart of saying, hey, that's not what it's ever about.
Yeah.
We are better together. We want to work together. It's not about the name. It's not about first priority or another organization. It is about building one kingdom. The kingdom doesn't belong to any of us. So we can kind of put our defenses down a little bit and we can tell a bigger story together. We might have a part and they might have a part. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 comes to mind. We don't forsake the hand or the leg or the foot or the ear. We're better together. So we've seen some of those happen.
I love it. A high tide raises all ships.
Good.
Together, we're all tied to the same dock. And let's all float this thing together. And if we do what we do well and consistently, that builds that trust, right? We are local church campus evangelism. Yeah.
And doing things that don't necessarily benefit us, right? Like helping a different club put on a different club fair just because we might have some resources or some people. And I think over the years, I hope that the reputation that First Priority has in my area is they mean what they say when they say that it's not about just building them, that it's about telling the greater story that we're all a part of. I would hope that.
Yeah. And I'll let Steve ask the next question, but I'm just going to say, if you haven't listened to Larry Frank's podcast from last week, go back and listen to that one because I was privileged to hear that conversation and being out in the community and serving, not just, being something that takes everything in, but giving back. Yep. So
Well, jumping on that a little bit, Brad, with Larry's talk, Rachel, you guys, again, we gave you some kudos on the front end just about really building community awareness of who you are. What have been some of the real strategic ways that you guys have found that actually bring you back results, bring you back opportunity to share the story in a greater length? How are you telling the story out there? And we call it marketing because there's not a better term, right? But how are you telling the story and helping people understand, hey, we think this is the best thing since a lot of things. And so where did you guys start? Where are you guys at now?
Yeah. So the best thing that we ever decided was to let students tell the story, to let them bring the churches and the businesses and the local community into what God is doing in their club on campus, right? They're the leaders, they're planning, they're preparing, they're praying over these clubs. And so the most effective way we've ever seen is when a student tells a story. And that can be, we might pull them up into a church visit for a new church partner and interview them for 10 minutes on stage. We might have them in a video. We might have them do something on social media. There's 100 million different ways to let students tell a story, but that is more motivating and compelling than me getting up there. Is a 7th grader who is doing this mission, executing this mission on their campus, telling the story. And then the second most effective thing I've seen is in-person church visits. So usually if I'm engaging with some kind of church and they're new to First Priority, they usually ask me, hey, what is the most effective way for us to have some sort of partnership? And by building trust and reputation with them, I'd say by letting me come tell a story. I love the story. It means something to me. And that's part of my job that I love probably more than any other part. So go visit a church and then you have a table in the church lobby with very easy ways for people to connect to this ministry. It's not so much about targeting the church as it is the people in the church. So I'm not necessarily looking for the leadership team. I'm looking for the mom and dad who have an 8th grader or a 10th grader, or the grandma who's like, hey, my kid is in 10th grade, 11th grade. They're the people who get really, really inspired. And as long as I've been doing this, which you guys have, been doing this a lot longer, we get told all the time, you're the best kept secret. So getting your face out there and telling the story. And then the last little tip I'd say is don't force it. We've had quite a few over 6 years being here that it felt like we were trying to, knock the door down to a church or a business or just force a partnership. And that Henry Blackaby quote changed everything for me. Watch to see where God is working and join him in his work. And so there's some partnerships, there's some people who are not going to be compelled by this story. And there's no shame or condemnation on that. They are in a different journey. So we just go to the one next door and try that one. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
I love it. And as you're talking too, because even though the podcasts come out a week apart, Larry was recorded recently, and I'm thinking of his story. He's 15 years down the road. He just saturated. You're in year 6. You saturated a county, and now you're going into the next 3. He's already saturated the next 3, and he's going for the next 2, right? But he's 9 years ahead of you in this journey, right? But you're doing it a little bit faster than he is, I think, because, we're all watching and see what God is doing, and we're building with and on each other's backs from those who have gone before us. And God is just opening those doors for us to continue to grow and help students reach students in the school, help those students tell those stories. So it's pretty, super encouraging.
Yeah, we have a network in First Priority, nationally that is just some of the best storytellers in the world. I'm biased, but the Larrys and the Steves and just some people who can get up there and tell this story and you're like, oh my goodness, you love this, the passion that you have for this, you'd be doing it for the rest of your life.
Is there a Steve I don't know about? You said Steve, good storyteller.
She was shouting for Steve Snap. Steve Snap.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
That's what she was doing. She just forgot to call him Snappy. It's no problem. He'll catch up. He'll appreciate Rachel, he will so appreciate the shout out. You have no idea. We don't have him on the podcast, so giving him a shout out for it is going to be awesome.
Did I say Steve? I meant Brad.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
There we go. There we go.
Now you're lying. Now I know you're lying. I'm the operation. I'm the behind the scenes guy. Yeah, now you're just sucking up. Oh, that's greatness.
So, hey, let's dig deeper a little bit on the students, on a pull on that thread a minute, right? How do you choose which student leaders to tell the story? Are you formulating that yourself, or are you depending on your team? Like, how do you get there?
They're doing it organically. I think just
Okay.
pay attention. What students are so excited about this, that they're in your inbox all the time, that they're texting you all the time, that they have these genius ideas. They're at every training, they're at every church event. I don't know if this is how it is in other areas, but in our area, they knock our door down, literally. They're at the office. They want to be a part of what's going on. They have ideas. They want to contribute. This is their mission. And so it's those students that just kind of naturally rise to the surface, that you're like, okay, you're already telling this story. Let's go tell it in front of people who have never heard about what First Priority is doing. And I might sit with them and coach them through, if it's an interview, a Q&A, something like that. But for the most part, I pray with them. And then I let God do what he wants to do. We say all the time that they have the same Holy Spirit that we have. They don't have a baby junior high Holy Spirit. And so most of the time, just watching God work through them is, it ministers to me.
Well, and everything you just said is culture, right? You've created a culture where they don't have to be called heroes. You're putting them in the position that they are the heroes, the students on campus doing it. That's a choice, in my opinion, because you eat all the language you just used, all the verbiage you just used, all of that. Words create culture. Culture changes the way, it transforms the way we do things. And so you've obviously invited them into the story and made them, hey, your piece is the most important piece, because it's why we do what we do at the end of the day. So well done.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the messaging. We're talking about students, you're talking about financial partners, you're talking about church leaders and parents. You're not just sending out one message and expecting them all to love what is being said in their language, right? Even though it's English, but you know what I mean? How are you tailoring those messages to these different crowds of people?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is I go back to the basics. Why do we do what we do? Well, we do it because of the Great Commission. We believe that these students can be equipped to be missionaries. We believe that the school campus is a mission field. And we believe that Jesus has called them to go and make disciples, not Jesus has called Brad and Rachel and Steve and Larry to go on all these campuses and make disciples. It's the students who are already there embedded into the culture. So one of the messages, the main message, is the Great Commission. This isn't because First Priority exists. The Great Commission should be executed long after we're gone. This isn't because Rachel had a compelling message one day on a Sunday morning. It is because this is the command that Jesus left us. So I always go back to the basics, and then I target students, parents, and local leaders as separate groups. That's something that we're getting really, really good at here. So students, go to social media, go to Instagram, go to TikTok, tell the story there, invite them to tell the story, repost when they do. An example comes to mind for that we had a local high school student lead a First Priority at his school, and he shared a phenomenal message. And it just so happened that they recorded it and put it on socials. And all we did was repost and tag him in it. Like, look at what God is doing through this student, and got the most engagement ever. The parents were proud. The grandparents are proud. The church he goes to is proud. They're reposting it. So telling the story that way for students, and then parents, Facebook. Our parents are on Facebook, right? So we're communicating a little bit differently to them through that avenue. And then our local leaders, so I'm thinking campus coaches, church leaders, business leaders, newsletters work really, really well for them. Concise, dynamic newsletters. So just tailoring that message a little bit based on your audience, where they are. And if you're doing what we talked about at the very beginning and getting to know your people, then you'll know where they are and what kind of messaging speaks to them.
Yep. Sounds like a lot of work. Just makes me tired.
A lot of work.
I'm not the marketing guy at all. And Tayana and Michael love that kind of stuff in our office, and they're very quick at it and good at it, but it just makes me tired.
Very good. Yeah.
I know the people, but I'm not the marketing person either. We have people that do that. They do a great job.
Yep. Well, we're doing some coaching in our office on fund development, and one of the things that they're talking about is getting others to be your ambassadors for you. So you're talking on one level, the message, the marketing that we do right out of our offices, out of our staff, what we're doing. But what are some of the ways that you empower churches and businesses and other people to become your ambassadors for First Priority around the community?
Yeah. Just, I think giving them permission to tell the story. You don't need
Yeah.
Rachel to come visit your church on a Sunday morning or your youth group. Put your students up there who are already involved. Even if they're shy or they're introverted, they have something to say, they have something to contribute. Let your pastors tell the story. I love the question to give back to pastors is, hey, why do you care about First Priority? Well, that's your story. Why does this matter to you? Businesses, like, they can come in and sponsor events, and that would be huge for us, jumping in and partnering with us for certain things throughout the school year, training events, or it might be a fundraising event. And inviting us into their networks would be huge, but giving them the chance to say, hey, these are the avenues, you're ambassadors. These are the avenues that we think would be most effective for you to share the story. And then giving them permission to run with it, really. It seems scary, but once you start doing it and you see how powerfully God can work in different people in different avenues, and they really just need permission. And I think they need a little encouragement and cheering on, like, hey, you can do this. You got this. You're going to do great at this. And just giving them that encouragement and spurring them on to be the ambassador. This has to matter to them too.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a consumer mindset in our society, right? So a lot of people don't just naturally say, oh yeah, I'm going to be, just doing this as an ambassador. But yeah, if you give them permission and you say it to them, that's just be the spark we need. We don't think about it even in our culture. Like, I think of t-shirts you can go buy at the store with brands on them. We are really kind of an ambassador then at that point, marketing for a company. Like, yeah, I'm marketing for First Priority right now because I have a First Priority shirt on. But yeah, we don't say it to them. If we say it to them, yeah, they'll go out and start telling. It's not hard, right?
Yeah. And all of our messaging, I hope, locally encourages that. Tell the story, share the story. If somebody asks you, hey, my school culture and the spiritual atmosphere on my school campus right now is terrible. Have you heard about First Priority? Have you heard about what it can do for the spiritual climate of your school? Do you have students on campus? So just inviting them into that and letting them know that it doesn't have to be all about you, I think, is huge. And they're usually doing that pretty organically, but encouraging it everywhere, making it, I think, to Steve's point, part of your culture, that you're continually pointing them back. Hey, share the story, tell the story. Why are you a part of this?
Which I think begins to help us land the plane, Rachel. I need you to think for a moment, if you can, dive deep in the memory bank. Has there been some unexpected wins at things like club fairs or, when we all do it, we all set up booths at missions conference, but have there been some unexpected wins for you and your team where it was like, this was really simple and yet the Lord just did something pretty outstanding that we were expecting because you were just faithful, right? Or a student was just faithful. But does anything come to mind where you had a couple simple things that really turned on its head and have created some momentum for you?
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind is what I would say our FP table. So it's when we go to any kind of event. It can be a conference, it can be a church event, it can be a youth event, whatever it might be. It just wasn't very effective when we started. And so we were realizing that although we might have gone up there and told the story so beautifully, people who were moved in that moment, whether it was in a one-on-one conversation or from a stage, had no way to connect with us after. Our table just wasn't facilitating that well. And so now we've tried to eliminate all barriers at our table. Even if a person maybe doesn't want to come up and approach us one-on-one, they can scan a QR code. We'll see them kind of scan, type in their information and head out. If we're going to an event where there might be an older group, we might not only do QR codes, we might do printed forms and hand them to them. And we try to target getting them the information and receiving their information at those tables. And that's been a huge win for us, that somebody might say, hey, I'm not ready yet to give you my information. I'm new to the area. I'm a new pastor. I'm a new business owner. I'm a little overwhelmed. We have these 1, 2, 3 cards that we can just put in their hand. Hey, if you're interested in partnering, here's the first step, second step, third step. Email us when you're ready. So that has been really, really helpful for our marketing strategy, just to eliminate barriers to engage with us and hear our story. We have really great videos that we publish. And so we can send that, I think, to Brad's point of being ambassadors, we can send them the videos to share with whoever they might want to share. Doesn't have to come directly from us. Share it with your grandma or your cousin or your uncle who owns a roofing business, and tell them why. And then the second thing, Steve, that comes to mind was it was COVID, our favorite time ever for this ministry. And obviously, we're figuring out how to do this ministry while students are not on the school campus and struggling, right? Everybody was struggling financially, emotionally, spiritually. And God just dropped it, I felt like, into my spirit to invite students to help raise funds during that time. And I was really nervous about that. I was still fairly new at that point, very, very nervous. And I remember just inviting this group of students that had risen organically that I was like, hey, you're a great leader. Can you kind of help us with something? And we called it the Good News Campaign to take ownership of that. And they were phenomenal. I mean, I was blown away. They were setting up booths outside of hardware stores. They were telling people about the gospel on the corner of McDonald's with a First Priority banner. Like, they just took that thing and ran with it and gave me so much courage and hope and fire. And marketing locally, they established great relationships with businesses, with churches, with parents, with other groups. Seeing a student standing in front of a table with Bibles and saying, hey, can you give me $10 to make sure that we can keep these Bibles on my campus, was way more effective than any kind of marketing that I've ever done myself. So that was a huge win as well.
Yeah. Love it. That makes me want to give you $10. Your emails I've ignored all. No offense, but that story right there, that's compelling. I like it. Any parting words to new directors just getting started? They're 2 months to 24 months in, feeling the burden. Got any advice for them as we walk out of this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same thing I say every time you guys invite me on the podcast, but drown yourself in prayer. It's now my habit to not engage with a new local market unless God has clearly established our steps there, and made it very, very clear that that's where we're supposed to go. And like I said, that first year, I think back to how many doors I tried to knock down myself to make people care about the Great Commission. And just because I cared about it, I thought you should care about it. And how much disappointment I faced in that first year that people did not reciprocate that. And I see now that God was saying, that's not the way that I wanted you to go. I actually wanted you to go to that smaller church on the corner that has 25 believers, but they have been faithful for 50 years and they care about the gospel reaching students, even if they have none in their church. So you don't know any of that without being drenched in prayer, and just asking God, hey, where do I go and how do I do it? I might introduce myself to a business owner one way because God is just kind of opening that door. I might be introduced to a new church in a different way because God is opening that door. So really putting the weight back on Him to lead the way in the marketing and getting new territories going helps us understand what we're supposed to be doing in our role in this. It's His burdens are light. They're easy to carry.
Yep. In 6 years, you'll be like Rachel, you'll be an overnight success.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right.
Well,
and then what am I going to be in 15 years?
Larry Franks. Wait.
Yes. I'm sorry he just insulted you that way, Rachel, but that's where we all end.
What a high honor.
I ask you the same question because, your answer is always good. But Fred Revell started out my week this week with the prayer call. He was quoting E.M. Bounds, who wrote 100 years ago, right? So it's not just 2025 America where we're setting quarterly rocks and annual goals and trying to be super efficient with everything. But his quote was, prayer makes it efficient, right? Because if we beat our heads against the church door that we're not supposed to be beating our heads against, because that's not where the Lord's leading, we're not going to be very efficient. So we do need to go where He calls, and we can't know that unless we're walking hand in hand with Him. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
it's good.
So good.
Well, our executive producer, Tayana, has told me I have to land the plane today. So shout out to Tayana. Shout out to everybody who's listening to us. I'm encouraged. And that's why we continue to have Rachel. Thank you for being on here. That's why we keep bringing you back, is because I know if I'm encouraged, it's like a student sharing their testimony in a club.
Mm-hmm.
that testimony is going to encourage those in the room to say, hey, I'm not alone. And I think you did that for our audience today. So thank you. Thank everybody for listening in. Continue to take the hope of Christ to every student. And until next week, hope you have a great week. Thanks for listening.